Hello, my name is Tony. Today I'm going to show you how to build a web app function that you can swipe the pages like this. So previously I have made a video on how to do the same thing using Polymer library. So for those who are not into using any framework, you can do the same thing um, using pure JavaScript. Sometimes using pure JavaScript can actually reduce the size of your web app quite a lot. So sometimes it's a reasonable choice in terms of using pure JavaScript. So let's get started. All right. So on my second screen, I've got my Atom editor ready, and also on the right hand side of the screen, it's my Chrome web browser. Now, let me set up the web server because my web server is not up and running yet. So, okay, so I believe the website is up, and if I press enter, nothing should show up. But let's do a bit of testing here just to make sure my website is actually working. So I'm gonna type in hello world, Control S. Yep, it's showing up, so that means my web server is definitely running. Let's get started with coding. So first task is to code the HTML and CSS part, and then after that we are going to code the JavaScript to so that the website is able to react to our so we are able to interact with the web page dynamically. Okay, so we are going to need two pages so we can swipe them, right? Um, so we need two div areas. So I'm going to set up a div page 1 and also div page 2. So these two areas are going to be my pages, so we can later on swipe them. We are going to style them now. So let's style page 1 first. Page 1, position, absolute, top, 0. We are doing this because we want to make the page 1 to be occupying the entire screen. So left is 0, width is 100% VW, height 100 VH, and let's set the background color to red. So let's do a refresh. Awesome. Let's give some text inside of this area, and class, let's set to center, page 1. Okay. We also need to set. Let's refresh first. Cool. So the page 1 is actually right here on the corner. What we want to do is to increase the size of it and also move it to the center of the screen. So we are going to style um, the center class. So we are going to first and foremost set the font size to be 300%, the position absolute, top 50% because we are centering the text area. So left 50% and transform translate 50%, 50%. Refresh. Bam. So page one text is actually sitting in the middle of the screen, and that's what we wanted. Now let's style page two. Page two is the style of it is quite similar. We also want page two to be occupying the entire screen. So I'm going to copy the style for page one and paste it underneath and rename it to page two. And also change the background color to be yellow, like so. Okay, so let's refresh. And let's also give a text to page two like this. Awesome. So here's the problem. The problem is the page two is sitting on top of page one. That's not what we want. We want page two to be sitting next to page one on the right hand side of it. So how do we do that? We simply change the value of the property left to 100%. So by setting this value, this will actually move page 2 to the right hand side of page 1 and around this area. So it will not be on the screen. It will be sitting actually on the right hand side of the screen, right next to page 1. And that's what we want, because we want to be able to swipe the pages. So right now we want the page 2 to be sitting outside of the window for now, and later on, after setting up the JavaScript, we are able to move the page. We are going to swipe the pages after setting up the JavaScript. So if I refresh now, I expect to see the page 1 again and not to see page 2 at all, because page 2 is going to be sitting on the right hand side of the screen. Bam. Okay. So we are almost done setting up the HTML code, except for setting up the 3 events. I will show you what I mean. So first and foremost, we are going to set up the ID for page 1, and because later on we need the JavaScript to be able to select this element. So we set the ID to be page 1. We also need to wire up the onTouchMove event, and so the onTouch. Okay, let's set up the onTouch start first. So that means this event is triggered as soon as you touch the window. As soon as you touch your screen, as soon as you use your finger to touch the screen, this event will be triggered. So once this event has been triggered, I want a function to be called. So we are going to do this. I will wire this event to a function named p1 handle touch start and pass a parameter event to this function. The next event we are going to wire up is onTouchMove. And we will link this event to a function called p1 handle touch move. We also are passing a parameter to it. So on touch move will be triggered as soon as you move your finger or mouse. As soon as you start swiping the screen, this event will be triggered. And once this event has been triggered, I want this function to be called. So same thing, we are going to do this. We are going to set up on touch end event. So as you guys may have guessed, the on touch end event is triggered as soon as you move your finger or move your mouse away from the screen. This event will be triggered, and we want to link this event to another function called p1 handle touch end event, and we are passing the event as the parameter. Okay, so let's do the similar for page 2 element. Like this, and let's change the name of the functions and also the ID accordingly to P2 page 2 element. Okay, let's do a refresh. Let's go back to the console, and there's no error. So pretty much the HTML has been set up. Now we are going to set up the JavaScript now. So the web page is able to react to our movements on the screen dynamically. So we are going to, so underneath the body tag, we are going to add a script tag. So that's where we are going to code the JavaScript. So first and foremost, we are going to assign two variables, P1 and P2. So we're going to get element by ID and page 1, and we're going to do the same for page 2. Yep. So we have assigned these two elements to P1 and P2. We are going to set up the remember we have three functions for P1 for now. So we're gonna set up the function, and the first function is called P1 handle touch start. It needs a parameter, so let's give the parameter to be EVT, and we also want to assign a variable as starting next. So this variable, we want that. We want a variable to record the coordinate of the touching point. So basically, as soon as we touch the screen, we want to set the value to the starting next. So that's what this function is going to do. So how do we do that? So basically in event, the event has many properties, and one of the properties is called touches. The touches is an array, and the first element of the array is for the touching point. So what we do is like this. Starting next and EVT dot touches 0 dot client x like this. So this is going to assign the touching point, the coordinate, horizontal coordinate for the touching point to starting x. We need this value because later on we want to be able to use the value to decide whether or not we want to swipe, we want to change the page. So the next thing we are going to do is I think for now we are good. I think for now we are good. So that's what the function P1 handle touch start does. It sets the coordinate, the horizontal coordinate value to starting x. So later on, when we are calling the next function, we are able to use the value. So we're gonna set the next function, and we are going to the next function is a P1 handle touch move. So basically this function is called whenever the on touch move event is triggered. So how do we do that? So once we start moving the finger, we want the function to do the magic. Basically, we want the function to control the pages. The first task the function needs to do is to move the page 1 slowly to the left. And we also want to move the page 2 slowly into the screen so we can see it. So how do we do that? We do it by assigning a variable first. var touch avt dot touches 0. So again, touches 0 is the property of the touching point. So whenever we are moving whenever we are moving the finger on the screen, swiping it, the touch property, it keeps assigning a new property to this touch property. Sorry, to this touch variable. And we want to change the style of the page 1 and page 2 accordingly based on the coordinate of the touch. So the next line we are going to do is var change starting next minus touch dot client x. So what this does is the change is actually the diff, is the difference between the starting point and the touching point at the moment we are swiping. So with this value, we are able to use this value to set the style for P1 and P2. So the first value we want to change is the left value of the P1. We want to change it to minus change pixel, like this. And the second value we want to change is the P2 dot display. Yep. So we want to make sure that P2 is actually displaying now as a block. So before, I forgot to set up a property for P2. So by default, we don't want to, although it's not showing up, but we still want to set the display to be none, because it's unnecessary to even display it since it's not even within the screen area. So we are going to set the P2 display to be block because now we want to display P2 as we are swiping the screen. So next step we want to set up is the P2 dot style dot left, and we want to actually use the we are going to do a bit of math here. So as P1 is losing the as P1 is moving to the left, there's an area that's going to be shown as P2, the part of the P2, page 2. So we want the so we want P2 to be able to display partially, and how far away from the very left side of the screen, and that's going to be screen dot width, which is the width of the screen minus the change. I hope that makes sense. If not, please pause the video and take a couple of minutes to think about this, and it shouldn't be too hard to make sense. But this is one of the things that you do need to actually take a moment to think, maybe one or 2 minutes to think. So basically, to summarize, as P1 is actually moving away, and the value is change value, we want the P2 to be inside of the screen. And how far away? That's going to be the screen width minus change. All right. And we are also going to call the function called prevent default. So otherwise, with that, we have to call this function. Otherwise, when we are swiping it, it will actually not. Uh, it will not work. Now, another thing we want to do is disable the action when we are swiping the finger or mouse on the screen to the right direction. How do we do that? So think about it. If the change value is less than 0, that means we are swiping to the right hand side. And if that's the case, we want to do nothing and simply return the function. All right, so that's all there is to it. And the next thing we want to do is set up the P1 handle touch end. So how do we do that? Well, it's also very simple. So P1 handle touch end, why do we need this? So basically we need this function to be called whenever we are moving, moving away from the screen, moving our finger or the mouse away from the screen. I wanted to decide to do the next step based on the situation. So basically, if I'm not moving, if I am not swiping the page enough, I want this function to reset it to still show page 1. But if I have swiped the screen for about 1/3 of the screen, the width of the screen, I want the function to actually display the page 2 for me. So basically, this video is getting a little bit too long, so I'm going to actually just do the copy and paste just to save a bit of time, and I will explain what this does. So it's the same thing. We are setting the change, and we are setting a half. Initially, I was using half. Actually, I think using diff will make a little bit more sense. Well, actually not. I think threshold will actually make a little bit more sense. So basically, we are calculating the change, and we are making decisions. This function makes the decisions based on the value, based on the difference between change and the threshold. The threshold is the value of 1/3 of the screen size, and the change is how much we have swiped the screen. So if we have swiped the screen for more than 1/3 of the entire screen, we want the function to move the page for us, we want to move the page 1 away and we want to show page 2. Otherwise, reset it and still shows page 1 and moves page 2 away from the screen. Okay, so that's the functions for page 1. And remember, we have also set up the events for page 2, so we are going to do the same. So since the video is getting a little bit too long, I'm going to just copy and paste the other 3 functions on the screen. Well, as a matter of fact, the functions for page 2 are very similar to page 1. Basically, we're calculating the difference and let the function decide what to do, and we are setting the starting point coordinate value so we can use it to make the decision uh, for for the user. So that's all the functions, and I know this code is not very efficient because this is only for demonstration purpose for this UI feature, UI function. So this is not the not a tutorial for JavaScript. So there's a lot of redundant code and lines. Definitely, I agree. We can tidy things up. But nevertheless, the point I'm trying to make is actually we can use the pure JavaScript to do the same thing that framework or library like Polymer can do for us. Because sometimes we want to use vanilla JavaScript to reduce the size of our app. Okay, so I think it's all sorted. It's all been set up. So I'm gonna refresh the page and test it out. So let me just refresh, and nothing happens. And also there's no error on the console, so that means we should be good to go. So let me try to swipe the pages. Yep, it's working. There's a bit of an error here, so let's fix it. So the error is coming from P2 handle touch start. P2 handle touch start. Yeah, I've done a P2 handle touch star. P2 handle touch star is not defined. Alright, so I think P2 handle touch start, P2 handle touch move. Let's make sure it all has been wired up correctly. P2 handle touch end. P2 handle touch end. Alright, sure. So yep, should be good to go again. So let's refresh. No error on the console again. So let's move it. Yep, it's working. If I move the screen back, if I move the screen just a little bit, it resets for me. If I move it long enough, it moves it for me. It moves the page 1 away and it displays page 2. Yeah, cool. Yep, so it's all working. Yep, so that's all there is to it. So using pure JavaScript to do the swipe screen function for web app. Yep, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me or leave your comments down below. And if you like the video, feel free to click the like button. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave your comments down below. My name is Tony, and thanks again for watching my video.